everyone, it's Darby from rejoiceandcreate.com, and for Christmas 2017 I have this project for you today. And it's an advent calendar in a book form. And this is what it looks like inside. Now the little boxes were made on the envelope punch board, and they are big enough to fit a small treat. Let me open this one up. They're closed with mini dimensionals, and you stick your finger a couple of times and it'll still seal it, but you will be able to peel it back so you can open it and close it a couple times. And inside each of the boxes is a verse of scripture and a little treat for the kids to enjoy. Now what else can you fit in there? You can fit a starburst in there. Let's see, what else do I have in here? You can fit some of the Brock's hard candies. This is one of the Starlight Mints. This is the Spearmint one. But the Starlight Mints and the Spearmint Mints, as well as their butterscotch discs and some of the other hard candies, will fit in there as well. Let's see, let's try this one. Oh, and the Lifesavers individually wrapped hard candies will fit in there as well. And this is a fun one. They actually have a holiday version of their Lifesaver hard candy mix, and it comes in red, green, and a candy cane color of red and white kind of swirled together, which is really nice. I got this at the Dollar Tree, but I'm sure you can find it at other outlets as well. And I love this because it's compact enough to give to somebody or mail through the mail, and you can use the little papers inside to send an encouraging note to somebody, to lift someone's spirit, to write down activities each day which maybe they could think about or do. And certainly you can use it for the scripture verses as well. So let me show you how I made it. For this time around, I'm going to try to make a more masculine or outdoorsy version of it. And I'm going to start with some early espresso. And for the box itself, you need 2 little box trays and the cover of the book. And if you work with a piece of 12 by 12, you can get them all out of the one piece, and I'll show you how. You need 2 pieces for the 2 boxes that are, let's see, 6 by 6 3/4. So if you measure to 6 3/4 and cut down, then turn that part and cut that in half, essentially at 6. You have the 2 pieces that are 6 by 6 3/4. Now from the piece we have left, we're going to cut a piece that is, actually it's 5 1/4 already, because we cut 6 3/4, leaves us 5 1/4, and that's the book top to bottom. And we want that length to be 9 3/4. Is that right? Let me look and see. Yep, 9 3/4. So go ahead and go to 9 3/4. And we'll cut that. So you can get all 3 pieces out of a piece of 12 by 12 cardstock. Alright, so let me bring in the scoreboard and we'll go ahead and score our pieces. Alright, we'll score the 9 3/4 by 5 1/4 first, and we'll score it at 4 3/8. 1, 2, 3. 4 3/8. 4 7/8. 5, 6, 7/8. And 5 3/8. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so that's 4 3/8, 4 7/8, and 5 3/8. And we're done with that one. So we'll go ahead and get the other 2 pieces, and they're scored the same way. And that is simply by scoring it at 1/2 and 1 inch on all 4 sides. Because what we're going to do is make a reinforced box for each side of our advent calendar book. Oops, almost got a little wild there. Start scoring, don't know when to stop. 1/2 inch, 1 inch all the way around. And we'll do the other one exactly the same way. Alright, so we'll work with our 2 box parts first, and we're going to treat them exactly the same way. And if you've done a reinforced box, sorry, make a mess. If you've done a reinforced box, then this will be very quick and easy. But go ahead and fold and burnish the score lines. Alright, and I'm hoping you can see those in here. It's a bit dark, but perhaps you can see the score lines. And just like the reinforced box, we're going to start with, I like to start with the shorter end. And you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4 little squares, and we're going to cut up on the left side of that last score line. So cut up on that side. Now on this part, we're going to take a little notch out. I'd like to take a little notch out right there because we're going to keep this one. So let's go ahead and cut those two off. Notch that as well, and we're going to notch in on this piece as well. And we'll do the exact same thing for the other side. Alright, so see we have 2 tabs that are notched on both sides, and we cut 1, 2 pieces which is also notched on both sides. Alright, do the same thing on the other side. So that's how both pieces should look. To put it together, I'm going to use a strong adhesive like Fast Fuse. So I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to go ahead and do just a little bit of Fast Fuse on the tabs. And then flip that back over. Try not to stick it to my paper while I just run it down these guys. My Fast Fuse is not behaving very well. Alright, so go ahead and form it into a box. And then just for a little bit extra support, because I know it's going to be a while and it might be going through the mail, I'll actually put a little glue there as well as the Fast Fuse. Sometimes my Fast Fuse pops apart when it's waiting to go. Alright, so the Fast Fuse grabs right away, and the glue will help hold it in the long run. Alright, and then I'll take it up and take my bone folder and just press those down to make sure that they're very well sealed. Alright, you do the exact same to the other piece. So I made the second one the exact same way as the first. Let me put those aside for a minute. And let's go back to our book. We have 3 score lines. I'm going to score the outer 2, not the very center one. So let's go, I mean, not score, but fold. I'm going to fold and burnish the outer 2. The inside one is to help me make sure I line up my boxes correctly. And it can fold, it might fold eventually on its own, but we don't need to fold and burnish that one at this point. And I also like to have the corners rounded a bit. So because I'm using the envelope punch board, I already have it here on my desk. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. Now, one more thing that I'm going to do before I put my boxes in is I want to decorate my covers. I'm going to use the Wood Textures Designer Series paper stack. Now you'll see on this one, the ribbon to tie it actually it was between the cardstock and the DSP on the front and the back of the book. It went all the way around the back of the book. This time I'm actually going to put it inside the book. When I put the boxes in, I'll put the ribbon there first, and I think it'll hold it better and it'll be easier to tie it shut. So we're going to do that. So when we decorate the front and the back, we don't have to put the ribbon in at this time. Now these pieces are 5 1/4 inches by 4 3/8, and I rounded the corners. And they will pretty much fill the front of the book. I'm using some Tombow. You're welcome to use whatever you wish to get the paper on. I'll go right up to the score line, and there won't be very much overhang. Alright, that's one. Alright, let me put that aside for just a moment. So I have a piece of Whisper White cardstock. I'll do one at a time because I'm going to do them left-handed and right-handed. Alright, I'm going to use Old Olive, kind of a woodsy color. I'm going to give each one of them a little cuff. And with cherry cobbler, I'm going to put a little flower poinsettia type decoration on the back of each of them. Alright, so now I'm going to cut them both out. There is a set of matching framelits that go with it, and I shall be right back. Alright, so I went ahead and cut out the 2 mittens using the Many Mittens Framelits dies, and that matches the Smitten Mittens stamp set. And while I was there, I used the lots of labels and some Whisper White cardstock, and I cut out the largest and the second largest of the labels. Now, to make it look a little bit more rustic, I'm going to take a minute and some early espresso ink and just sponge around the outsides of these labels. I'm going to use the stamp from a Christmas quilt stamp set, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, and stamp it on the bottom of the larger of the 2 labels. Now I have the to and from the Smitten Mittens, and I'm going to stamp it on the back down towards the bottom. Alright, to decorate that one a little bit more, I'm going to put the sentiment from Smitten Mittens right in the middle there. And let me go ahead and put a couple flowers on these as well. Okay, let me move this out of the way so I don't get my fingers in it. And we're going to go ahead and glue one of our mittens down and stack the other one on top of it. So let's use a little bit of fast fuse. Put that one down this way. And perhaps a couple of dimensionals on this one. Oh, why not? Let's do the 6th one. Alright, we're going to stick that one up over there like that. Like that. And to make it look a little bit more rustic, I'm going to tie some linen thread, and I've got some linen thread. I'll take out the creases from it, double it up, and I'm going to go ahead and tie a little bow. Alright, so we'll go ahead and put this one on the front. Center up and down and side to side. And I'll put this one on the back. Alright, so let's go ahead and flip it over. And okay, to help me out a little bit, I'm going to move this up just a little bit so I have that strong line on my grid paper that goes through about the center of it, so I know where to put my ribbon. Alright, for this one I'm going to use the Old Olive mini chevron ribbon, and it's probably going to be about 32 inches that I'll use. I might trim a little bit off, but I want to make sure I have enough to tie a bow. Alright, let me fold it in half. Sorry, my hand's right up by the camera. Let me fold it in half so I know where the center is, because that's where the center is going to be, right over that center line. Alright, so that's where I want it to go. Let me move it up just a little bit so I can use it to just put a strip of fast fuse on both sides. Oh, a little bit off on that one. Alright. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring our boxes back and we're going to put those on. And how I did that was with Tombow. Alright, and how I put that on was Tombow. So get a good covering of it all the way to the edges. And then we have the 1, 2, 3 score lines. So for this right one, the box that's going to be on the right side, I'm going on that last score line, and I'll go ahead and... Sorry about that, my camera ran out of disk space, so unfortunately I was talking to myself. So what I did was on that right score line, I butted that box up there and I centered it within this book panel on that side. And I did the same thing with the other one. I glued it down with Tombow, so it's very secure. And we have our book. All right, so the next thing we have to do is make our little boxes that go inside. And for that I picked out 6 different colors and patterns of the wood textured 6x6 paper, because each box will need 3 by 3 inches and we'll need 24 boxes to lead up to Christmas time. So I started with 6 different colors and patterns, and let me go to one of them. Let's see, and I'll show you how I cut them. The first thing I did was cut this into 3 by 3 squares. So I cut it into 3, stacked them up, cut them into 3. So I have 4 3 by 3 squares. And I went ahead and took out my envelope punch board. So get your envelope punch board, and holding 2 of them together, I line the corner up at 1 1/8 of an inch. Then punch and score. And then move it over to 1 3/4 of an inch. Punch and score. Turn it around, making sure you keep the edges of your 2 papers together. Line your nib up with the first score line. Be on the 1 1/8 at this point. So just follow the nib to the score line and then scoot it down to the second score line and punch and score. All right, turn around again, keeping your 2 papers together. Line the nib back up at the score line, and this time you will be closer to the 1 1/8, but don't pay attention to those. Just pay attention to your score lines. Move it on down to the score line again, and you do that all the way around. So I have one more side. Let's see, am I lined up on that? Yep. And move it down. Okay, so I did 2 at the same time, and we're going to go ahead and round the corners. Okay, so let me take the punch board away for a minute. And for this I found that glue dots worked the best. It was fast, they stuck together. I didn't have to worry about them. Now if you're making 24 of these, the quickest way I found to do this is actually just to go ahead and fold these with your fingers and run your fingernail across them. And you want to spend the time using your bone folder to fold and burnish all the score lines. Alright, so that one's... Okay, now if you'll notice, there's 2 that are a little bit narrower and 2 that are a little bit wider, because this box is a slight rectangle. And what I did is I took the wider side towards me, and I cut up right next to the wide tab on that score line and made a slight notch. Again on the other side, score line, slight notch. Turned it around, did the exact same thing. Up on the score line, cut a slight notch. Up on the score line, cut a slight notch. Alright. So then I took my piercing tool and my glue dots, which are my friend, because with 24 little boxes to make, you're going to go through a lot of glue dots. And put one on each of the tabs. Alright. Then go ahead and line your tabs up with the sides. Put your sides up and squish it down. 23 more to go. Let me move them aside. Okay, and what I like to do is kind of mix and match them so that I have some light ones next to some dark ones and different colors. Oops, that's the same. So I get dark in the middle and light on the sides. Kind of alternate them. And let's see, maybe one more light one. Let's go for that one. Okay, so I have this side all set. Now let me go to the other side and do the same thing. Alright, so now that they're all in, what I'm going to do is take them out, and then I'll put some Tombow on the bottom of there, and I'm going to glue them all back in. And I start with one side. Okay, now I'll do the other side. Then I'll put Okay, so these are all in. I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the other side, and I'll be right back. So now we've glued all the little boxes in. I filled each of them with a little candy, some with Starburst, some with the Spearmint or the Starlight Mints, and some with the Lifesavers, individually wrapped Lifesavers, the holiday edition. So the next thing I did was I took some of the lighter colored paper from the same package, the Wood Textures package, and I punched out 24 of the classic label punches. And I'm using that to write the little notes inside. Now I'm putting Bible verses in, and I found the Bible verses by just doing a search for Bible verses for Advent calendar, and it has a really nice set of verses that you can walk through, and that will walk you through the Christmas story to the birth of Christ. But certainly you can use this as well for maybe an inspirational message for someone who's having a little bit of a struggle. Maybe it's the first Christmas since the death of a loved one, and maybe they need to know that there's someone thinking about them each day. Or maybe you could put in an activity if you're giving them for your kids and you want to do an activity. And the next thing I'm going to do is to close these up. And how I did that was using the mini dimensionals. And I just took one of the mini dimensionals and I stuck it, let's see, where would you see the best? I'm going to pull that one back. I stuck it right at the end of the tip of the one on the top. And what I did next was I folded the two down, two sides down, bottom up, and peeled off the dimensional backing, and then stuck my finger to it a couple times and then stuck it down. Because that way it's not as sticky as they are when they first come out of the package, so you can peel it back without tearing the paper. And I did that for every single one of the boxes. So the last thing we have to do is to put on the labels that tell people which day is which. So let me move this out of the way. I punched. All right, I'm going to stamp them in early espresso. So I used the labeler alphabet and I stuck some of the numbers onto my block. And how I did that is actually I stuck the 1, 2, 3, and 4 on this side on the corners, putting on and taking off my stamps. And I'll just go ahead and stamp them according to what number they are. So we're going to stamp number 1 first, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I need a 10, and an 11, and a 12, and a 13. Now because I have a cherry cobbler and it's pretty strong full strength, I'm going to stamp off before I stamp on there. So let's see, I'm just going to randomly pick some and stamp some images on different tags. Let's bring back our advent calendar and we'll glue on our little tags. Alright, so we're coming down to the finish line. Circle of glue, and I'll do about 6 at a time. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I'll pause for, and I'll use one of my stamping blocks I don't get to use very often as a weight. And then I'll move on to the next 6. The last thing for us to do is to tie it up. So go ahead and close it up. I usually grab just a punch to help hold it down while I tie it. And there we have it. A more rustic map. I hope you liked the project today. If you need any more information, go to my website at rejoiceandcreate.com. And if you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. It's very encouraging. And until we meet again, I hope your days are blessed. Bye.